So I'm often accused of being an extremely negative person, and I accept that charge. I just wanted to answer it a little bit. A couple years ago, Bill Maher did an interview at Oxford, and you can feel about Bill Maher however you do. I don't particularly care for him myself. He lost me after his whole "if you can't get the chicken, get the fish." Um, he was one of those people telling Hillary support or Bernie supporters, "You're being ridiculous," like Sarah Silverman. I hope that being ridiculous follows her to the grave. I hope they put that on her tombstone someday. Like, "You're being ridiculous, Sarah Silverman." Anyway, um, and then Al Franken's got her back, right? Don't worry, they're ridiculous. Anyway, I'm being negative, aren't I? So, he says that they ask him, like, everyone seems pissed off at you most of the time. And he says, well, if you're telling the truth, that's just the way it is. If you're telling the truth, most people will not like you for it.
Do you think that satire should have boundaries, either morally or legally? And if so, where should they be drawn?
Well, boundaries, that's a good question. I don't think there should be boundaries based on fear. Taste, maybe. There's no point in making a joke about a senseless tragedy unless there's some larger point to be made. So that's the only thing that would stop me. And I think being criticized for the satire you do is a healthy thing. If you're not upsetting some people, you're not really being brave. If everyone likes you, you have never said anything true. Anytime you speak the truth, some people are going to hate you. In America, at one time or another, everyone has hated me. And it's funny, a lot of people, if you read the Twitter feed, or comment sections, if I make fun of the Catholics, they're like, how dare you make fun of the Catholics? Why don't you ever say anything about the Muslims? And if I make fun of the Muslims, how dare you make fun of the Muslims? Why don't you ever say anything about the Catholics? They don't realize that I make fun of everybody. They just hear what they don't like about their own people.
And I rejected that notion. Stupid me, right? I'm like, no, the average person is not that stupid, complacent, childlike, self-destructive. If you told them the truth, they might be uncomfortable with how their world has changed, but they should ultimately accept that an adult wants that change to come because their life will be more functional for it. But we don't live in those times, obviously. We live in a time of people going, who are you to judge? It's the favorite, rallying cry of the adult baby. And it's like this stupid rhetorical question. And I love to answer it in this very gaslighting fashion. I love to say a better person in every way that can be conceived by human consciousness and a few that we haven't discovered yet. I had to come up with that over time. And you wouldn't, it's like they have steam coming out of their ears like Yosemite Sam. And I'm like, you think that someone who's so immature and so easy to gaslight is on any sort of footing in this argument right from the gate? Like, really? And I realized it's because the average person exists in this bubble, right? And it's a bubble of comfort addiction. And I didn't realize that, and I talked about in my previous video how my chronic pain will not allow me to rest like that. That if I tried to rest like that, I have a herniated disc in my neck, right where my neck meets my shoulders. So it's like I can't sit comfortably for a long time. I can't lounge very well. It's part of the reason I make these videos, is to occupy myself and to kind of use the anger that's caused by that frustration toward a more positive end. And that's ironic to me, that I attempt to sort of transmute my pain into something positive, but I'm still accused of being negative. And I'm kind of like, well, what is negative? How do people normally define negativity? And I realize that they're defining negative as anything that puts them out, anything that makes them uncomfortable for even a second. And they're like, you're being negative. You're the most negative person. And you could be standing there going I'm the only one saying that the sky is actually falling. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing with my channel. I'm saying that were the sky to actually be falling, were there to be a shower of meteors a la Armageddon, I would be the only one looking up and going, guys, get to shelter. We've got to work together to do something about this. And everyone would be like, shut up, Tom. You're so negative. We don't want to focus on the meteor shower. We just want to watch TV until whatever happens, happens. I want to be comfortable even in, like, I don't want to be aware of the notion that harm might come to me. And you're more aware, obviously. Like, you're just, you pay more attention. And so now, and part of that on my behalf is because of the way that my face was reconstructed after my car accident. My eyelids are partially pinned open. So my eyes are almost literally pinned open, Clockwork Orange style, all the time. I have to very forcefully close them. And at night, when I want to sleep, I have to literally tie them shut with a bandana or a piece of tape. I've gotten used to that over like 20 years, as much as you can get used to it. But it sort of transforms you into, it gives you this choice where you can become Batman or the Joker, where you now have this sort of, you're different. You know, and you just look at the Joker and you see those scars on his face, and you're supposed to understand that he has suffered more than you, and that suffering has probably twisted him somewhere inside. And I've fought very, very hard to not become twisted, you know, and to not become full-on black hat, like working against the world. I don't want to do that. Like, my conscience is very, very, very potent and powerful. My conscience sickens me, actually. Like, if I try to act in a way that I know would be harmful to the herd, I feel sick to my stomach. I feel like I want to cry. You know what I mean? And that's partially the reason I'm making this video, is so many people that shut out my message, shut out when I'm trying to be helpful, because I sound angry. You know, or I sound upset, or I sound like I'm chastising the other person in the argument, or I'm chastising the object of my ire, whether it's a famous person or someone else I feel has ruined the world somehow with their beliefs, or by imposing their beliefs on the world is now worse for it. And I'm tired of people telling me that, or trying to stifle me exactly as my ideological opposition would, by telling me that I sound too negative. And it's like, grow the fuck up. Not all truth is going to be candy-coated and comfortable to hear. And it's like, if you're the type of person that someone's trying to tell you that, you know, the gas line outside your house is going to explode, you've got to get out, and you're like, you know, who are you to judge me and tell me how to live, and why don't you just let me stay in peace? Like, it's not your place. That's a big thing. It's not your place to tell me what to do. And they would rather be ignorant of the circumstances that are going to destroy them, rather than be uncomfortable for a nanosecond having somebody tell them that they're in imminent danger. And they would rather shoot the messenger. And there's this whole thing with, like, what do you think, you're better than me? What do you think, you're smarter than me? It's like I'm always talking to Dax Shepard from Idiocracy. And he interrupted me while I was watching Ow My Balls. And that is not okay. That's who I deal with. Like, you're interrupting me while I'm watching Ow My Balls. And that's not okay. And you try to sound smart and you talk like a fag. You know, that's how people treat me. And I'm like, I'm trying to make the world a better fucking place before I go. And that's partially because I see myself as having a ticking clock. And I spoke in my previous videos about how, even though my father worked for it's a plant that used to refine coal back in the 80s, and that my uncle worked for the health department, and he insists that death was related to conditions at the plant. It's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with, like, any sort of genetic curse you might be facing someday. Like, your dad was actually really physically fit, and his work environment probably killed him. And my grandfather before that died very young of a very rare form of cancer that might have been work related. It might be genetic. It might just be bad luck. Who knows? But I don't want to roll those dice like I have forever to make the changes I want to make. And so I see myself as having this, like, 9 or 10 year window to affect the changes in the world I want to see happen. And I promise you that they are entirely egalitarian. They are entirely humanitarian. I just want to see everybody more happy and more functional. I swear to God. I want to see the world be a more happy, functional, actually comfortable place. And I'm tired of people being in denial and using denial to stay in comfort addiction, and lashing out at people like me and shutting me out entirely because I'm delivering an unpleasant message that's ultimately for your benefit. And so you can shut me out because I say Crowder is evil, or that I said that Jimmy Dore should take phone calls. And that's the funny thing, how I like Jimmy Dore a lot. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. You know, and I even follow Ron Placone. You know, I shouldn't say that like he doesn't deserve it, but it's like I love the message. I love the show. And I had a problem once. I made one video where I said that people like David Pakman take calls, so why shouldn't you? And he said it in this really mean way that I would normally be attacked for. Do you see the double standard? I'm like, so Jimmy Dore called his fans Joey who gives a shit or something. And he was just like, why would I want to hear from Joey fuckface? And I'm like, because those are your fans. You know what I mean? Joey Fuckface are the people that are donating to your streams. Joey Fuckface donated $5 during your last live stream. Aren't you glad? No, you called him Joey Fuckface and you said you don't care what he has to say. And so I should be able to have that opinion without Jimmy Dore's fans coming down on me and shutting me out completely and acting like I can't have an opinion about the man without attacking him. You know, or with, I don't know, people conflate opinions with personal attacks. Now, like, you're not allowed to say, I think Jimmy Dore should take phone calls without being called an excessively negative person who should keep his opinion to himself and know his place. Ridiculous.